Yeah, it's a Friday show. It's a Friday show. And I'm excited about this show. I usually am pretty excited. Uh, there are things we're watching. Hopefully, we'll get to certain things Monday that I know some of you have been seeing on the news stream, especially considering Christine Ohm. We do want to do a little bit of a dive on that. Scott hates when I overpromise. We'll see what happens in the news cycle, from now till then. But I would like to get into that a little bit. And there's some other things too that are developing. But today we're going to start with something that you are absolutely worried about. I'm worried about it. I'm dealing with it. My wife is dealing with it because she deals with anything that has anything to do with responsibility in our household. And health insurance is what I'm talking about in this particular instance, but there are multiple instances where I defer to my beautiful, intelligent wife to do the adulting because I'm unqualified. I'm unqualified. Let's be honest. Okay, so healthcare. You guys are worried about it. The deadline's coming. You guys are shopping. You're shopping plans. The plans are through the roof. And we have absolutely no guarantee. As a matter of fact, the chances just got slimmer that we will have ACA subsidies. Okay? We are at the point in the show that I told you we were going to get to. When they were negotiating late in the shutdown, I kept circling back and saying they're gonna fold and they're going to take another promise. They're going to take another empty Republican promise. The last time they did this was the last shutdown under Trump. Both sides wanted some stuff put in the CR to keep the government open. Trump and his allies wanted money for the border wall. Schumer and Senate Democrats wanted guarantees for DACA, for the Dreamers, to stay here in the United States and continue chasing their dreams. Trump didn't get the money for the wall. And what Schumer got was a promise from Mitch McConnell that we will have a vote for your assurances on the Dreamers. In good faith, we will give it a try. We'll have your vote, and if you have a good case for these Dreamers, it'll pass the Senate. Well, they tried 3 times, failed each time. Absolutely no guarantees for the Dreamers came from that. And I said that is what is exactly going to happen in this instance. That is exactly how it's going to play out again this time. As Schumer again goes for a majority leader promise, an empty promise. Hey, just end the shutdown and we'll immediately begin negotiations and have votes for your ACA subsidies. Not only did the Republicans never had any intention of voting, most of them, of voting for ACA subsidies because the decree had been handed down from their cult leader on how to fall on that issue. It never had a chance. They knew it never had a chance. Not only did the Democrat version of the ACA subsidies that hit the floor not have a chance, the Senate Republicans had their own new shiny version, again, pushed by your cult leader to propose. Well, both failed. Both failed. Both failed along the same lines, 51-48. They had to get 60. It was a pipe dream. It was an empty promise. It was never going to happen. It was a pipe dream, okay? The Democrat version would have extended the subsidies for 3 years. Flat, boom. They said time and again they were willing to negotiate with the Republicans on some of the terms, some of the verbiage and language in the ACA subsidies, changes they want. A cap on households that could receive the subsidies. They didn't want Republicans, and we're going to keep circling around to this theme, they don't want any of the subsidy money going to abortions or transgender operations. Okay? They're very clear on that as well. And there's a couple other things. They want, language assurances that no undocumented immigrants can take advantage of the subsidies as well. Those are the things that are very important to the Republicans. Those are right there on the top of their agenda. Transgenders, undocumented immigrants receiving health care. That's what they're worried about. While affordability is a Democrat hoax, that's what the Senate Republicans are worried about. It's unbelievable. The Democrat version was voted for by Republican Susan Collins, Republican Josh Hawley, Republican Lisa Murkowski, and Republican Dan Sullivan. They voted for it. They voted for it. Now, the GOP proposal, which involves dumping cash into a tax-friendly account for you to use for out-of-pocket expenditures, and we'll get a little bit more into the details of that, that failed as well. 51-48. Failed. John Thune says he's open to continued bipartisan negotiation, but he said, look, flat out, there's a lot of skepticism on both sides, okay? The 3-year extension from the Democrats that had no modifications that the Republicans started bringing to the table late, any of these weird, fanciful ideas about, an account and all this, they didn't want any of that included. They just wanted the subsidies extended 3 years, put Americans' minds at ease, boom, flat. Again, they were willing to negotiate on the terms, and still are. Now, many Republicans, they flat out reject the subsidies, say it's a boondoggle, and it's going to raise insurance prices even farther. And some Republicans are all over the map on how they feel, for and against it. Some are a little more fringy, but the majority of the Republicans in the Senate are like, look, and in the House are like, look, it's a boondoggle. It's a boondoggle. But the House, that has a different feel right now. As I mentioned, lawmakers in both the House and the Senate, the House is a little different right now, okay? Both House and Senate Republicans, by the way, are saying that Democrats are the ones that are playing politics with your health insurance. Okay, but when the Democrats' version is simply extend the subsidies, boom, we're done here. Nothing added, nothing fringy, nothing left-wing or, radical added, just extend them as they are. Boom. Let's take care of this right now. That is not playing politics. And I got polls. Now, sometimes I reference like a CBS News poll or a MSNBC poll or a Gallup poll or a Fox News poll, and kind of where they're leaning a little bit. Gallup's more in the middle, but usually when I tell you what the poll is, kind of the leaning of the poll itself. But sometimes I mention the KFF poll, and I felt I owed you real quick who that was if you didn't know. That was formerly the Kaiser Family Foundation, and it has been rebranded recently to just the KFF Health Poll. And it is important to know when I do reference this KFF Health Poll that it is absolutely unaligned politically, completely politically unaligned, nonprofit, completely nonprofit, and they do not and have not and will not fund either political party in any way. This is a very bipartisan poll. And in the last KFF poll, 74% of the public favor subsidy extension hard stop. 74% of those polled. A lot of Republicans in that 74%, I promise you. Now, there are 2 separate discharge petitions that are a little bit different, that are both being presented in the House. They want to go right around Mike Johnson. It is bipartisan. Of course it's bipartisan, because like I said, some Republicans are saying that the Democrats are playing politics with your health insurance, but many Republicans, especially in the House, recognize the danger, the existential danger that their seats are in if they go into the midterms and this is unsettled or Americans flat out cannot afford their health insurance. They see it. So these 2 discharge petitions, they are bipartisan, and they are looking to get around Mike Johnson, who is a very clear impediment to the ACA subsidies being extended. And he said it himself. Okay? But there are these 2 discharge petitions to go right around Mike Johnson. But when I tell you that, and they may be successful, they may be able to get the 218 they need on that discharge petition signed by Republicans and Democrats alike. They may get it. But just remember, even if they pass something with ACA subsidies extended, there is no guarantee it will pass the Senate. But then we get to play the fun game of it's all eyes on you, John Thune. You see, right now they get to share. They get to share the pressure, right? Nothing's been passed in the House. Nothing's been passed in the Senate. And the Republicans are divided over it. But right now they share that pressure from division. They share it. But if the House should actually succeed with the discharge petition, get around Mike Johnson, force a vote, that vote goes through and goes to the Senate, all eyes on you, John Thune. Now I dare you, Senate Republicans, I dare you. Vote it down then. A nice, simple, non-political, non-watered down, packed, filled with garbage, radical nonsense. Just extend the subsidies, maybe 2 years, maybe they decide just a year through the midterms. Let's take the issue off the table for both parties. Let's take it off the table. Let's do a year. If the Republicans should vote for that, oh, well then, Don, time to put your money where your mouth is. If it gets to Don's desk, does he have the balls to personally and unilaterally kill it? I dare you. I dare you, Senate Republicans, and I dare you, Donald Trump. I dare you to take these subsidies away personally. That would be political suicide going into the midterms. I don't care how much spin you apply. I don't care how many revolutions per second you get on that spin. It will not be enough. It will not be enough. Too many struggling Republicans will see that for exactly what that is. Okay? So, I'm not saying the subsidies are dead. I'm just saying the situation is evolving. It's changing. Now, 24 million Americans are right now are enrolled in ACA programs. 24 million Americans. Okay? And right now, there is no clear path for these subsidies right now. Obviously, I'm proposing a path, but it is not clear. It is far from clear. Okay? And Americans right now, I think the deadline is December 15th if you want your plan to start covering you January 1st. And people are signing up for plans right now that they cannot afford, hoping and praying that these politicians get their act together enough to subsidize, or otherwise they're going to be making some really tough decisions over the next year. Really tough decisions. Okay? Some of them who have not committed to a plan are going to have to seriously consider whether they skip coverage altogether this year. God forbid. Can you imagine? Could you imagine millions of Americans going completely without health care, those with kids, conditions, the elder, because they have to, or their it's their electricity, their mortgage, their health insurance. It's a shell game. Pick one. Where's the money going to go? Where's the money going to go? Now, some lawmakers are coming out and saying flat out, we believe there's hope. Don't forget, the continuing resolution that they voted on and passed runs through January 30th, and they're going to have to come up with a budget for our country. That budget could contain ACA subsidies. That's the new deadline. That's probably the final deadline. It's probably the final deadline for this year. It could contain ACA subsidies. Okay. Jean Shaheen, it's funny. I keep giving you quotes from this woman. She's the Democrat out of New Hampshire. I keep giving you quotes from her because all of her quotes involve all of this hope, right? She's so optimistic about the chances. She better be hopeful. She better do everything she can to facilitate this because she's one of the Democrats that voted with the Republicans to open the government back up with no subsidy extension. She did it. She and her moderate cohorts did it. So, of course, she's going to come out here and say, I hope there are enough people on both sides who want to come to the table and get a compromise. Well, we did this, Jane. We did this. And when they did not come to the table and compromise, you went over to their side of the table. Let's not forget how that played out. Okay, they did not come to the table last time. They probably will not come to the table this time, Senator. So you hold out hope. Just remember, you did this. You did this. John Thune, Senate Majority Leader, criticized the Democrats' bill as a continuation of the status quo in an attempt to disguise the real impact of Obamacare's spiraling healthcare costs. He said that some Republicans are interested in talking to Democrats, but we'll see if they have an audience. Chuck Schumer, of course, he's got to come out. He's got to do the talking point. He's got to do the thing, right? His bill got shot down. So Chuck Schumer comes out and says the Republicans would have to get off their position that they're not extending the subsidies at all. Why should they, Chuck? Why should they? They got people like Shaheen who will bend and break and fold and waffle and lose the game of chicken. It worked the first time. Chuck, didn't you just watch it work? Them not coming to the table? Standing firm on a we're not going to extend the subsidies position? Why would you even say that? Josh Hawley, he voted for both versions. He voted for the Republicans and the Democrats version. He said he voted to advance both Democratic and Republican proposals to begin debate and move forward. I want to see big changes to both of them, but my view is we've got to do something. Lord help us when Josh Hawley is the voice of reason in any issue. Oh, man. We are in a dark place when Josh Hawley's out here making sense. When he's the voice of reason. Ay. Ay. Dan Sullivan, he voted for the Democrats' version as well. Why? Because Dan Sullivan's facing re-election. And everybody facing re-election knows how impactful this will be to their re-election chances should this not get worked out. He knows it. He said, my state is hurting on this. He's got to talk to them. He's got to try to get out in front of this. Hey, look what I'm voting for, guys. Hey, please re-elect me. I care. I really, really care. Look, I'm even voting for Democrats. I care so much about your health care. They're getting out in front of it. Levitt, what'd she say? Always charming that the president is working with his health policy team as well as Republicans on the Hill to find a solution. We'll talk about their stupid solution a little bit more.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things.
Some things that
Brett breaks things because someone has to.
Mr. President, Senators Cassidy and Crapo have introduced a bill to create health savings accounts to replace Obamacare subsidies. Do you support that bill?
Well, I like the concept. I don't want to give the insurance companies any money. They've been ripping off the public for years. Obamacare is a scam to make the insurance companies rich, and they have made, you look, $1,400 to $1,700 increase, 100% increase over the last number of years. There's really few things that have gone up like insurance companies. They're getting numbers and money like nobody's ever seen before. Billions and billions of dollars is paid directly to insurance companies. We're not going to do that anymore. I believe Obamacare was set up to take care of insurance companies, not to take care of the American public.
How dare this dude? How dare he? What did he say there? He said Obamacare is a scam. Well, he would know about scams. And it was set up to make billions and billions of dollars. What about your scams, Don? What about your grifts? God, totally immune to hypocrisy. While he grifts the entire world, and I'll get to his newest grift. In just a second, I'll get to his newest grift, and that's what it is. It is a grift. I'll get to it in a second. How dare you, dude? Just the hypocrisy of what he's saying just right there. It's a scam. It's a grift set up to make billions for the insurance companies. Well, I don't know about all that, Don. But I know that Obamacare has made it affordable for me to have health insurance over the last handful of years. That's what I know. I don't know much about your scams and your beautiful mind with numbers and billions, but I know you, in just one of your grifts, you made a couple billion from Sheikh Tanoon to get those chip sales to the UAE. I know that. I know you used your government to open up a way for Sheikh Tanoon of the UAE, who had wanted these NVIDIA chips for years. We had blocked them because of your relationship with China, Sheikh. And in comes Trump. He fires everybody that was standing in the way of those UAE chip sales, and Tanoon gave him $2 billion into his meme coin. That's a billions and billions dollar grift, Mr. President. That's a grift. And that grift did not help me with my health insurance, but Obamacare did. So I don't know about your conspiracy theories. I know I've had health insurance the last handful of years because of the ACA subsidies. And I know I share that opinion with many millions of Americans. Okay. Now, Trump said he doesn't want to continue the subsidies. He said he likes the idea instead of giving Americans money in tax-advantaged health savings accounts. What are we talking about? That is what the reporter was talking about. That is the central part of Crapo and Cassidy's legislation. They wanted to put somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 in Americans' bank in an account, a tax-friendly account, based on anybody who makes 700% poverty or less. So if you make 700% the poverty level in your income or less, you would get somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 for out-of-pocket expenses. Not for premium payments specifically. So you got to go get a health insurance plan anyway, but without the subsidies. So we'll give you $1,500 for the out-of-pocket, $1,500. That's it. $1,500. In the meantime, go figure out how you get your premium taken care of should you have an actual problem, like a car accident or an actual illness or something that requires surgery. And speaking of that, also included in Crapo and Cassidy's legislation is absolutely specifically no abortions and no transgender operations. Okay, the transgender operations is a whole nother issue. I'm not going to get into that right now. Okay, but obviously it falls right into their filthy little agenda of we have to hate the smallest percent of Americans and make it a huge part of our entire political platform. Hate for this small, tiny little section of Americana who's hurting nobody. I digress. The abortion language. Well, I would like to ask the senators, Crapo and Cassidy, what about life-saving operations related to pregnancies? Are they covered? Does your language account for that? And I think them adding something like that to this kind of legislation, it really lends you insight into how they feel about women. You see, either they hadn't even considered it, and the language in the legislation does not cover life-saving operations that end up with a baby being lost. Either they hadn't considered it, and that's kind of how they feel about you. They just don't care enough to consider it. Or they had considered it, and they have active disdain for women. Which one is it, Senator? I'd like you to be a little more specific about that little provision there, about the abortion. I'm not getting into whether, abortion itself, unrelated to any type of complications or overarching issues. We did that show. We've done that show. Randy did that show. The whole country watched that show play out. It landed where it landed, and we're moving on. Okay, but I'd like you to be a little more specific about what exactly would be funded, Mr. Crapo and Mr. Cassidy. I wonder what you know and what you have considered in terms of that. Now, Mike Johnson, he said the Republicans, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to put some legislation on the floor. You don't need your pesky discharge petitions. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it myself. Don't worry. He has absolutely no intention of bringing anything to the floor that includes ACA subsidies. And he said so. All right. And he has said so. And even though the Republicans and Democrats both know that their jobs will be in danger without these subsidies come the midterms, this abortion issue is a big issue among House Republicans and between Republicans and Democrats in the House. The abortion language, they can't let it go. Not in the Senate, not in the House. It is a constant issue tied to the ACA subsidies, what will be covered and what won't. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise said, everybody wants to help our moderates in some way or another. But he said that there is a big disagreement within our conference over how to handle policy related to abortion coverage. That's been the fault line. If it was easy, it'd already be in the package. And that is the truth out of Steve Scalise. All of that is the truth out of Steve Scalise. This is a constant issue. It is not easy to tackle, and if it were easy, this wouldn't be an impediment at all. It may be on its way. But it is a constant issue. But the discharge petitions are on their way. They're on their way. And John Thune said, I will not commit to anything that comes from these discharge petitions. You're not gonna bully me. He's trying to get out in front of that pressure. He already sees it. John Thune, he's done this. He's been around the block. He's got a lot of experience. He knows how these political cycles go. He's got a little foresight, right? And he sees exactly what's happening here. So he's going to get out in front of, will the discharge petitions go through and pass on a vote, to if or when the discharge petition passes. I'm not committing anything. Can't make me. Well, you got a little bit of pressure already coming from Senate Republicans, right? Murkowski, Collins, Paul, some of these people. You've already got a little bit of pressure. You don't have a ton of wiggle room on this. Thune, you're going to be in trouble if that House version does have Republican concessions in it. If it does have an income cap. If it does have language to bar undocumented immigrants from accessing these subsidies. If it does have some kind of clear language on transgender operations and abortion coverage, if these things should get ironed out in the House and come to your desk, come to the floor of the Senate, we'll see if you're talking so tough. We'll see if you can stiff arm all of these Senate Republicans who are worried about their jobs.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett Breaks Things. Fighting for America, one mic drop at a time.
Okay. We're going to move on to Trump's new grift. We're going to move on to Trump's new grift. The innovator of the grift. That's my moniker for him. The innovator of the grift. And he certainly is. You can say a lot about Trump, but as a grifter, as a con man, as a hustler, he has reached unprecedented heights. If you're a fan of that element of our society, you're proud of this guy. If you're a cult leader, you don't give a crap. If you're a cult member, you don't give a crap. You just want to make that money. The cult leader just wants to make that money. And the cult members are going to do anything they can to defend the position, ignore it, spin it, propagandize it, whatever they have to do, because they are already dug in. Their fate is sealed, many of them. Although I have seen a really interesting crowd developing on social media. They say they're taking off their red hat. Have you seen this, Scotty? They're taking off their red hat. They talk about, hey, I took off my red hat, and this is why. And they talk about reasons they have left Trumpism and left MAGA. It's kind of refreshing. I got to be honest. Check that out if you can. But the grifter, the cult leader, man, he's found a new one. He's found a new one. This one. So, Venezuela, right? I know a lot of you saw the news probably that he seized a tanker. On its face, okay, he's already applied a ton of pressure. He seized one of his tankers. Well, we got to get to the grift part. Yes, on its face, he seized a tanker. This tanker was called the Skipper, okay? This hits Maduro hard. This hits Maduro real hard, okay? Oil revenue, Venezuela has the deepest oil reserves in the world. And oil revenue is, you cannot overstate how important oil revenue is to their economy, okay? 90% of Venezuela's export income comes from oil. Now, Trump has accused Maduro of being a cartel leader and has put a $50 million bounty on his head. But any drugs moved, any profits from drug trafficking that Maduro may or may not be involved in, it pales in comparison to their oil exports. Pales. And this is going to put a ton of pressure on him. It's going to drive the price of his oil even lower than it already is, and I'll explain why. And he's already got like those close to him skimming millions off the top of their billions upon billion dollar industry, their oil industry. This tanker they seized was $80 million worth of oil. That's about 5% of what Venezuela spends monthly on imports that are critical to their people's, living in the country, their quality of life. They need a lot of imports. They have a lot of critical imports, and they have to spend money from their oil on those imports. And without those imports, without money to spend on those imports, who's going to get hurt? Who's going to feel it? The people, not Maduro. Maduro will be fine, right? The people. Of course, the people. Who always gets crushed in these situations? It's the people. Every single time. Now we're talking about more pressure on Maduro, a massive military buildup in the Caribbean Sea, the deadly boat strikes, threats of bombing inside the country, letting the CIA run wild, then going on a news gaggle and talking about it. Maduro at the time said, well, at least they told us this time. But yeah, all of these things, this is the one. This is the one that could break Maduro. This is the one. This could absolutely destabilize his regime. Now we're talking about pressure on Maduro. We're talking about the effect on Venezuela. I'll get to the grift. But you got to understand the U.S. says it's going to keep seizing things. And they've also levied more sanctions. And we'll get to that as well. But if one Venezuelan economist here in the States, in the University of Denver, his name's Francisco Rodriguez. He said a lot about this, but a couple things I wanted to bring. He said, if the U.S. seizes one tanker a month, that would push Venezuela into a recession. If you cause a massive decline in oil revenues, that's going to cause another massive recession from them. They had one in 2016, I think, another one in 2020. They know from recession. Believe me, they know. And right now, all signs are pointing towards a critical blow to their economy. Right now, their exports are paralyzed because of this sanction. Right now, there are about a dozen ships sitting off the coast of Venezuela. About a dozen ships just sitting there. They're not coming near the oil ports of Venezuela. That is very odd because usually, at any point during the day, you could see around 10 ships docking, loading, and leaving to export their oil all day long out of these ports. Right now, you've got 12 ships, from what our images show, 12 ships just sitting there, paralyzed. Everybody's in fear. Everybody's in fear that their ship is going to be the next one to get seized. $80 million on the skipper. $80 million. Now, the Venezuelan port official said, quote, employees around the country are calling in sick or skipping work as the tensions with the U.S. escalate. Venezuelan crude oil falls under U.S. sanction. Okay? You got to understand, Venezuelan oil is under sanction. It's been under sanction since 2019, under U.S. sanction. Normally, sanctions of this nature would have other countries on board, part of a UN resolution sanction with multiple countries on board. This one's all U.S. Okay? Because of these sanctions, this is the real interesting part. Because of these sanctions, there's about 1,000 ships in what's called a shadow fleet. A shadow fleet of smugglers takes Venezuelan oil out of the country and sells it to mostly China. This ship, the skipper, was one of those sanctioned ships. This is where the legality really comes into play, and we're going to get into it. But this skipper was sanctioned. That's the next question on your mind. They're seizing sanctioned ships in international waters. This is where it gets kind of murky. But was the skipper sanctioned itself? Yes. The skipper has been sanctioned since 2022 when it smuggled oil for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and Hezbollah. Part of this shadow fleet of ships. This shadow fleet of ship they also serve Russia, who has their oil sanctioned, and Iran, who has their oil sanctioned. All of these sanctioned countries use this secret shadow fleet of ships. It's pretty interesting. And according to tankertrackers.com, which is a website that closely follows oil shipping, there are 80 ships somewhere near the Venezuelan coast right now. Some are in that state of paralyzation, like I mentioned. There's 80 ships around the Venezuelan coast right now. 30 of them are sanctioned shadow fleet ships. 30 of them. And so this is the crux of the new grift. Trump is going to seize a ship, and they're going to call it a ship that's facilitating terrorism and its funding. It is not unprecedented for the U.S. to seize a ship. It's not unprecedented. It's not even unprecedented for us to seize a ship in international waters, okay? The Trump administration in 2020 seized 4 such vessels. We've done this before. That was Iranian fuel at the time, okay? Now, at the time, a federal judge had approved a warrant to seize those 4 ships. So your next question, your first question was this skipper sanctioned? It was. And your next question now should be, well, did a judge approve a warrant to seize the skipper? Yes. Yes. How convenient for the administration. A federal judge did approve a warrant to seize the skipper. Okay, he did. Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said that the tanker, the skipper, had been sanctioned for carrying Iranian oil in the past and would be taken to a U.S. port. She said U.S. forces executed a warrant for the skipper and that investigators were interviewing its crew. She said the U.S. would take possession of the oil on the ship, estimated at 1.85 million barrels. There's the grift. This is going to start to become a little clearer for you. The president considers the seizure of the oil tanker as effectuating the administration's sanction policies. Now, the Treasury Department just Thursday updated its sanction list. This went really well. I mean, it's getting a little bit of pushback, and we'll talk about the murky legal waters that this is in, no pun intended. But this went well. And the grift is on. And they have levied new sanctions. New sanctions. And we're going to get to who they sanctioned next, because I find it really interesting. It's the nephews of Maduro's wife. Okay? The nephews of Maduro's wife and a business partner have been targeted by U.S. sanctions. Fresh sanctions. Thursday. Now, Tess Bridgman, a former White House lawyer, had some interesting things to say. She said the skipper is sailing under a Guyana flag, but Guyana said it had no record of it. That makes it a legal case for seizures easier, hence the warrant. Makes sense. She also said, however, that seizing ships is on the strongest footing when done under auspices of the UN National Security Council resolution in conjunction with other countries. In this case, the U.S. is doing it on its own. And Maduro had something to say about it. He accused the U.S. of piracy. We have to be like warriors with one eye peeled and the other as well. I'm not sure if that's an actual... He's trying to use a little American colloquialism. I think he fumbled it a little bit, but we get what you're talking about, Maduro. He said at a rally Wednesday he called people to be prepared to bust the teeth of the American empire if necessary. If necessary. All right. So, he's going to do more. He's levied new sanctions. Maduro has put himself in this precarious position. He did this to himself. He had little choice since 2019. He had to move his oil, had to make his money. He had to prop up his economy. He had to do it. Using this shadow fleet, it moved 600,000 barrels a day for him. Now, he's going to have to take a bigger hit because of the pressure on the shadow fleet. His oil just became cheaper. With this one seizure, oil in Venezuela, from Venezuela to these countries that are willing to deal with sanctioned oil, it just became cheaper. And because of the shadowy, clandestine nature in which he has to make these transactions, he usually uses cryptocurrency exchanges, murky cash transactions, which leads to corruption and people being able to steal from him, like Tariq El-Assimi did, his former oil minister. This guy skimmed millions of dollars off of their billions of dollars of profits in a crypto embezzling scheme. Well, Maduro arrested him just recently, and he hasn't been seen or heard from since. That's how you take care of that problem, huh? That part does sound like a cartel or a criminal organization. You want to steal from me? Nobody's going to hear from you or see you ever again. But like all of these conflicts, again, it is the people who are going to suffer. It is the people who are going to suffer. It is always the people who suffer. So I just told you that even this one seizure is going to shave 5% of their import power. That is going to affect their population, their buyers, the people who live in that country. It's even worse. You see, because their economy is so bad right now, there is a program of food handouts that Maduro has established to feed his people because their starvation level damn near. Well, because of this, it is already confirmed that he has dialed back his food handout program. He will be handing out less food. Period. It's the people who suffer. It's one expert said, I would this referring to the seizures, it would definitely harm Maduro much more than the boat strikes have, but it would harm the population way more. You think Maduro cares? You think Trump cares? You think Rubio cares? You think Hegseth cares about the Venezuelan people and their stomachs being full? No.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things, pushing back, speaking up, and holding the line.
All right. I'm going to go overtime today. I already know that because I'm getting into everything today. I'm not pushing a couple of these stories. I'm not pushing them off any longer. So, and I do want to dig into the seizure and reveal the grift because not enough news outlets are doing this. They're not revealing the grift for what it is. I'm not hearing enough people speak out about the next layer behind this seizure. And that's what I'm going to do now. Now, before I get really into the meat of the grift, I do want to talk about these new sanctions because this is the grift in action. But in terms of who is being sanctioned, these are not nice people. These are not good people, okay? Don't think there's a bunch of victims in this particular part of the story. Maduro's wife's nephews are not great people, okay? They're not good guys. They're not just victims. Efren Antonio Campo Floros and Frankie Francisco Flores de Freitas are two of the nephews. I know that's a mouthful. If that's a mouthful, you can call them by what they are more affectionately known as by the Venezuelan people as the narco nephews. That's their moniker. That's what they're known as, the narco nephews. And that is because, among other things, they were arrested in Haiti and convicted in 2016 of cocaine trafficking charges, okay? So they are major international cocaine traffickers. Interesting enough, President Biden actually granted them clemency because Biden started to engage in these rounds of diplomacy with Maduro at the time. Okay. And Biden was trying to get Maduro to normalize his government, come to a more democratic center, start to see the virtues and the values of an honest election and the democratic process and trying to, build a real relationship with this guy. And so in the process of these negotiations, Biden granted them clemency. They walked away from that. Then there was Carlos Eric Malpica Flores, the third nephew. Now, this guy is tied to the Venezuelan state oil-owned company Petroles de Venezuela, state-owned oil company, okay? That company, because of malfeasance and other things going on with the Maduro regime, he and that company were sanctioned in 2017. And also included in those negotiations with Biden, Biden lifted his sanctions. They have now been re-sanctioned. Those three gentlemen, those three nephews. There's also Ramon Catero Napolitano, who is a Panamanian businessman. He's been included as well. Obviously, allegations of corruption. Why not? He's also got sanctions on him. Okay, that increases the amount of ships and oil that is available for Trump to just reach on out and seize. He's making his net a little wider to catch those fish for this grift. He started with a very easy target. He started with a tanker that had been under U.S. sanctions since 2022, that had been helping funding terrorism in the Middle East, and that was carrying $80 million of Venezuela's oil. They waited. They got the warrant. They waited for this one ship. All they had to have was one of these ships, one of these shadow fleet ships to screw up, and they snatched it. And now they're widening their net with these three nephews and this businessman's ships, and there's sanctions on them. Carolyn Levitt says, we're not going to stand by and watch sanctioned vessels sail the seas with black market oil, the proceeds of which fuel narco-terrorism of rogue and illegitimate regimes around the world. Here's the grift. They are going to seize this boat, okay? Jeremy Painter, a former lead investigator who specializes in these type of sanctions and seizures, he said, yes, the vessel and its cargo have been seized. The question is, will they go through the forfeiture process to actually legally take the stuff? Why does he say that? Because usually when something is seized by the U.S. government under sanctions or anything else, it would require a filing in civil court for that action. And then in that filing, in that action, it would be challenged by the owner of the vessel or the owner of the cargo, right? There would be a filing in civil court to take that oil, take that money, and then the owner of the vessel and the cargo would come and challenge it. And that process takes years. That's not Trump's style. Painter said, quote, if the administration proceeded with forfeiture, it would likely attempt to show a connection between the property and terrorism as a threat to the United States. And they would just take that cash under those terms of forfeiture. They'd just take it. I'd love to know where that money goes if they should get through, the entire grift and bank that cash. Where does it go? Can't wait on the reporting on that. Where exactly will it go? But in terms of saying that the property is funding terrorism, they already laid the groundwork for that. Don't forget. That's tied into their excuse to attack these boats, the fishing boats. That's the excuse they're using. Not only are these fishing boats bringing cocaine and fentanyl, which does not get produced in Venezuela, does not go through Venezuela. Not only are they bringing dangerous drugs that are killing our Americans, the money they're making from these drugs is funding terrorism. Hard stop. That's what we're going with. They are funding terrorism so we can kill them. They're non-state combatants. Remember? Well, to non-state combatants, all right, to that idea, that philosophy alone, under international law, nations may seize stateless vessels. They have laid the groundwork for that. Under international law, if they can prove that the skipper is a non-state terrorist combatant. You see how this grift is all coming together with their prior rhetoric and explanations for why they're doing this and the memos that they're giving to Congress way after the fact? You see how this is coming together? Somebody way smarter than Trump put this one together. They have already laid the groundwork for all of this. All of it. Painter had one more thing to say. He said a sanction from a legal standpoint only applies within the United States or to U.S. individuals or entities. They don't have the legal authority to prohibit Venezuela from selling oil to China. Well, haven't you been listening, Mr. Painter? I just explained to you. It's not Venezuela selling oil to China. It's the narco-terrorist regime of Maduro trying to sell oil to China. That is the groundwork they laid for this grift. Any oil coming out of Venezuela is not Venezuelan oil. It's a narco-terrorist funding operation coming out of the Maduro drug cartel. So we can blow them out of the water and we can seize their money. And we just expanded the list of people we consider to be narco-terrorist funders. In terms of the narco nephews, I almost cussed. You may be right. I don't know, you may be right. I don't know what the narco nephews are up to. But this grift is much more legally airtight than some of the previous grifts. This one, I think they're confident with, which is why they come out here, and Carolyn Levitt can easily take a W on this. She has no problem just boisterously coming out and saying, we are seizing sanctioned ships. We got a warrant. We're taking the oil. See, because there's not a whole lot of spin or propaganda involved in that one. This is one of the more easier talking points since she took the job, because it did get a warrant. It is a sanctioned ship. We are taking the oil, and they laid the groundwork for why they can take it right now. See the grift coming together? See how they did that one? This one really could break the Maduro regime. This one really could break them. And I'm not here defending Maduro, but just know the reason all of this is happening is because Maduro's regime is sitting on top of the largest oil reserve in the world. Trump wants American companies to be able to safely and legally come into Venezuela and make billions. Trump wants a normalized relationship with Venezuela that is sympathetic to right-wing conservatism and Trumpism. And Maduro stands in the way of all of this. They have been cooking this up for a while. According to officials close to administration, White House administration, they've been saying that Rubio and Hegseth specifically have been pushing for Maduro regime change since they took their new positions. They've been actively and frequently pushing for this. There are some in the administration that have pushed back, don't want to destabilize the region. Trump now in his new, policy, direction, says, well, we want to take the Monroe Doctrine more seriously, right? All other continents out. The Americas are ours to control. Because Venezuela and these Central American countries are so close to us, we have a right to take special attention and ensure Americans are safe and profitable and not under any kind of economic or real-world threat from any of these South American countries. This is part of that overall new vision for the Trump administration over the next 3 years. Europeans, bad. Russia, good. South America is our playground again. Very simple. They want the oil. They are weighing many options on how to get Maduro out of there. When they put that $50 million bounty on his head, he knew, everybody should have known, we all knew, that was the start of the countdown. Whether it ends in his death or him fleeing the country, we don't know that yet. But it looks like that third option that we talked about a week ago or 2 weeks ago when Trump was still getting on the phone with Maduro and Maduro officials and they were still talking it out. There was a third option at the time that Maduro somehow makes a deal for their natural resources and minerals, opens up the oil trade just wide open for the U.S. and lessens their relationship with China, lessens their exports and imports with China specifically, right? There was a whole bunch of options on the table for Maduro to keep his head and keep his job. Looks like that third option might be off the table. I wonder if Maduro didn't bend the knee enough. Did he push back in any way in these negotiations? I would love to know how that played out. Could Maduro have saved his head and his job if he had just bent a little bit more in those talks? But it looks like those talks have failed for Maduro. And it looks like there's just a couple options here for Maduro. Stay, have your oil seized, your economy in shambles, your citizens blown out of the water, the CIA sneaking around your borders and inside your country, or pack your bags and head to China. Your options are dwindling, Mr. Maduro. Your country has no real army, to speak of. You've arrested all of your top generals. You have no way of stopping the U.S.'s will. So you got a couple options. We're coming back for overtime, by the way.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts. No fluff.
I got to get that ad out of the rotation. That's getting kind of, all the girls okay. So we're back in overtime because there's a couple things I want to get to. I'm just going to knock them out. First, cracks in the MAGA movement. Cracks in the MAGA movement in Congress. Not just Congress. Now we're seeing it state level. Okay. We've seen the cracks from the Epstein files, bipartisan measures to block military action in Venezuela. Obviously the ACA subsidies. Tariffs are becoming a bipartisan issue. The affordability issue. This is going to lose people's seats. They know it. They're getting a little upset at Trump's rhetoric over that. But now, the redistricting. They're getting pushback there. There are cracks showing state level in terms of the redistricting. I love it. Now, I did a show 3 weeks ago, and I kind of did some math on where we're going to gain and lose districts on this redistricting, on the gerrymander push, on the new craze of gerrymandering. Where we're going to lose and where we're going to gain. Things are shifting a little bit, but at the time I told you, and I spent time on Indiana. Why? Because Republicans were saying things that would lead you to believe that Trump and his allies were going to have a hard time getting redistricting through in Indiana's Republican majority state Senate. And I said, this one, I don't think this is smoke and mirrors. I don't think this is just optimism. I think this one's got legs. And it did. It did. The Republicans, 21 Republicans, voted no to redistricting in Indiana. They lost the vote 19-31 overall. Trump and his allies have been pressuring Indiana to redraw those maps and get 2 new seats. They've been doing it for months. He has been hosting Indiana lawmakers in Washington over the phone, over Zoom. He has been pressuring them. He has been raging and insulting them on social media. The pressure has been unending. I asked at the time, I said, man, I wonder how heavy Trump is willing to turn up the dial on these Republicans in Indiana. And boy, did he show me. They showed me. Even J.D. Vance went there twice to meet with these Senate Republicans in Indiana, and they failed. They failed. Even some of the Senate Republicans in Indiana faced bomb threats, and their houses were swatted. If you don't know what swatting is, it's calling up the authorities, 911, giving an address of one of these Republican lawmakers and saying, there's been gunshots at this address. And then the SWAT team comes. And there have been instances in the past where people have lost their lives over a SWAT team overzealously invading somebody's home and killing them. All on felonious grounds, all on false grounds. So some of these Republican lawmakers were swatted over this, which is crazy. Now, we've done the show, and I'm going to do it again as we get closer to the midterms, where we stand in terms of these redistricting. And I'm going to talk about another race in just a little bit, a couple races that I can't wait to tell you about. But we're going to keep updating this. But just know, the Missouri, North Carolina, Florida, they are moving forward. They're going to pick up seats with those. But there has been Republican resistance. Nebraska refuses. Kansas refuses. And now Indiana refuses to redistrict. This is one of those cracks. This is the loosening of that grip that Donald Trump has on the Republican Party. This is where it shows up. This is a good thing. Don't forget, gerrymandering on both sides, it's still going forward. Virginia, Maryland, maybe New York, maybe Illinois, they're all gerrymandering or considering it to pick up houses that are blue, or seats that are blue. Don't forget that, okay? But Indiana's not going for it. They focused on the intentions of the founding fathers, And they focused on the preservation of confidence in the American voter. How about that? How about that? Not everything's just black and white, right? It is refreshing to hear Republicans make a bunch of sense and say the right thing every now and then. It's refreshing. They did say some things. State Senator Spencer Deary, who's a Republican, voted against it, said the power to draw election maps is a sacred responsibility directly tied to the integrity of our elections and the people's faith in our constitutional system. That's what I'm talking about. State Senator Chris Garton, a Republican, who supported the redistricting, what did he have to say? What's the other side have to say? He described the trajectory of the country under Mr. Trump as, quote, a story of a nation being pulled back from the brink of disaster. Quote, it's not just about lines on a map. It's a vote of critical, epic proportion that will define Indiana's role in the recovery of this republic. It's always that fringe crap, the recovery of this republic. Okay. So Indiana's not going to gerrymander. Who is going to gerrymander? Texas. Right? We know that. We know Texas is going to gerrymander. And we know Gavin Newsom, he's striking back. He's trying to negate the 5 seats that are going to be gained in Texas with 5 new blue seats in California. He's striking back. But I wanted to bring this to your attention because this brought a new level of hope for me, a new lane for hope for me. You see, Jasmine Crockett she announced Monday that she will run in the Democratic primary for Senate in Texas. Pop the little poppers, streamers, yay. She's rising to the spot where I think a lot of us Democrats knew she was capable of doing. This is, for me, when thinking about Jasmine Crockett, this is for me, her actualizing her potential. That's what this is. She said that she is running because I believe Texas deserves a senator who will be an independent voice for all 30 million Texans, not a rubber stamp or a party line vote for Donald Trump. That's great. That's great. I'm all for it. Now here's the not so great. Okay? Here's the not so great. She's going to be primaried by James Talrico. Let that sink in. Yeah. It's going to be either one or the other, right? I personally love James Talrico. I love the angle. I love the ways he can get into maybe more ears and more hearts and more minds of Republicans than any other Democrats have a chance of doing. He is a very religious man. He quotes his religiosity. He brings it up from time to time. But everybody knows who he is and how squeaky clean his background is. And he is a very good orator. And he would make a great senator. But so would Jasmine Crockett. So, on the bad side, one of them isn't going to be senator. On the good side, no matter which one wins, we are going to get an excellent senator. That's the good news. Whichever one wins, we're going to get an excellent senator. Now, there's another wrinkle to this, and this is great. This is great. Now, hours after Jasmine Crockett announced she was going to run for the Senate, Colin Allred announced that he would be running not for the Senate, which he lost to Ted Cruz and was planning on running again now. He was going to run against Talrico. He says, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. A very qualified, excellent nomination, Jasmine Crockett, right? Jasmine Crockett, candidate, rather. She's excellent. Talrico's excellent. I'm going to take a step back or to the side, and I'm going to go for that one of those new House seats. In this case, it's the 33rd, the brand new 33rd district of Texas. 33rd. One of those brand new gerrymandered districts that the Republicans think is just going to be red. Right? That was the whole point of the new maps that the Supreme Court upheld. They're just saying, boom, we're going to win it. Well, Allred says not so fast. Instead of running for the Senate in what would probably be a messy primary, right? All of us are good candidates. Here's the thing. In Texas, in a primary, if none of the candidates get a majority vote, They take the top 2 candidates and they do a runoff. Allred says, you know what? I'm not here for any of that. I'm not here for any of that. That is going to hurt the party. It may get ugly. It'll prolong the process. Right now, we need unity. So I'm going to step aside and I'm going to let Talrico and Crockett, they're going to go at it in the Senate. And I'm going to go try to get this 33rd district, and I'm going to try to put a real, be a real thorn in the Republican side and really be an impediment to their plan of just an automatic 5 new districts and try to win that 33rd new district. I love this. It shows unity in the Democratic Party. It shows common sense, and it shows a little bit of balls, pardon my French. And it gives me that new lane of hope. Because we've been talking about this redistricting in very definitive terms. Texas is going to get 5. California is going to get 5. Boom, done. Well, maybe not boom, done. Maybe not boom, done. Maybe Allred might win one of those. Just maybe. He'll be going against Rep. Julie Johnson. She was serving her first term. This is a part of Allred's former district, right? It's been gerrymandered around, but this is a round where Allred used to serve in the House. So he's going to go back for that. And Julie Johnson's going to go against him as a Democrat. Also, just want to put this out there. John Cornyn, he's the senator, the Republican senator from Texas. He's going to be running for re-election, and he's going to get primaried against Ken Paxton, that degenerate, that criminal, that federal criminal. Ken Paxton, hustler, and Rep. Wesley Hunt. They're going to go for Cornyn's seat. Now, as far as that seat that Paxton and Hunt and Cornyn are going for, or the senatorial seat, they think that basically they think that whoever the Republican is that comes out of that race will beat the Democrat. Just what political analysts are saying is that for that senatorial seat, I know you're excited about Jasmine Crockett, you're excited about Talrico, and I am too. Most political analysts are saying that Republicans are going to win that seat. But Democrats are hoping that Ken Paxton comes out as the Republican candidate because the dude's dirty. He's got a lot of skeletons in his closet, and there's a lot of opportunity to attack his character. And the Democrats feel like of the 3, Ken Paxton's the one we could actually beat, maybe. So I'm going to go ahead and tell my audience, root for Ken Paxton in the Republican primary for that Senate seat. Boom. Root for Ken Paxton. Keep an eye on it. Root for Ken Paxton. It'll obviously be very interesting who wins the primary on the Democrat side, Crockett or Talrico, both excellent, but a little bit of a reason to watch the Republican primary side. Root for Paxton. Final thing I just want to tack on to the end of the show. The DOJ went for a 3rd grand jury indictment on Letitia James and failed. This is a big L. It's an L for Pam. She's going to get fired. Halligan's going to get fired. Haba stepped down. Pam's going to get fired. And if Pam gets fired, Todd's going to get fired. I'm calling it. They're going to get fired. She is screwing this up royally. They have failed for a 3rd time to get an indictment in Virginia. Okay, a federal grand jury in Alexandria declined. It is already unusual enough that they're going for a 3rd try. This is highly unusual. And there's problems that are embedded in this repeated failed attempt, right? The problem is, even if they should get, and they have the right to, try again. So let's say they get it on the 4th or 5th try. A magistrate judge is going to look at this in the face of what is undoubtedly, obligatorily going to be a motion to dismiss on vindictive charges, just like the one that was picking up steam in the Comey case. Okay, the lawyers will 100% reintroduce those motions to dismiss on vindictive charges. And now a judge is going to sit here and say, you tried not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times to get an indictment that if it was even just remotely justified, it would have gone through and you would have gotten it the first time. But you had to try 4 times, maybe 5. We'll see how this plays out. You had to try this many times. Why did you continue to face these embarrassments, look stupid on a national level? Why did you continue to try? Obviously, it's a shaky case. Why? Because of the vindictive nature of all of it. And if you thought it was going to be easy for Magistrate Judge Fitzpatrick to come to that conclusion, it is going to be exponentially easier for the next magistrate judge who is facing a motion to dismiss out of Abby Lowell to dismiss this one too. It's just going to make it that much easier. And I'm going to close the show with a statement from Abby Lowell, Letitia's lawyer. He said in a statement that the second rejection makes it even clearer that this case should never have seen the light of day. This case already has been a stain on the department's reputation and raises troubling questions about its integrity. Any further attempt to revive these discredited charges would be a mockery of our system of justice. What did a spokesman for the Eastern District of Virginia say? What did Pam say? What did Todd say? No comment. Yeah. You better stay a little tight-lipped, Pam, because now your ineptitude is in the spotlight. You're going to get fired. Enjoy your weekend, kids. I'll see you Monday.